The first weekend of the Overwatch League has now finished, and may I say, what a crazy first weekend that was of the Overwatch League. We have teams doing as good as we expected them to be, and so many teams not actually good as we thought they were going to be. And before I go into this video, these kind of videos are just kind of like a conversation video. We're going to talk about what happened in the weekend, talk about teams, good, bad, underwhelming, surprising. Kind of like that kind of videos what these are going to be. Hopefully I can do them every weekend. We'll see. I don't want the same thing being said every weekend, so we'll see what happens. But may I say, what a weekend to start off the Overwatch League. We have Houston Outlaws versus the Dallas Fuel. One of the best opening games I think we've had. We have teams like the Los Angeles Gladiators being underwhelming with the first couple of games we've seen them so far. Shock also underwhelming, but I'll get to Shock later when we get to it. It's just going to be a conversation video. I'm not going to go over every team because that would just be kind of resident sleeper at that point. I'm going to go over the teams that really got brought to my eye that I really want to talk about in this video. I made a list what I want to talk about in order. The first team is the Houston Outlaws. They're proving all of us wrong, which is great. I wanted them to do that. Some of you are already going back to the Tank Duo video. That's great. I want that to happen. I want us to laugh at our previous predictions, especially mine as well. But I gotta say, I was right about the DPS duo. I think everyone was going to predict this DPS duo to be top tier. Happy and Dante, man, just crazy of a players. Happy did so much in that Shock game and also the Dallas game. Dante did a fantastic performance this weekend. Then you have Jonggu and Piggy. Piggy's so far underrated. Like, no one's talking about Piggy. Piggy's doing a fantastic job. You have Jonggu playing the Ryan, the Winston. This guy's been dominating on the Houston Outlaws. This meta is also really good for them, but other than that, I think any meta would be good for the Houston Outlaws. This meta in particular is just very strong for the Houston Outlaws. Then you have the support line, Crimzo, as good as I thought he was going to be. Juby, he is good. He definitely needs to work on a few things, and he could probably be in the conversations for some of the best main sports in the league right now. Definitely need to clean a few things up with his beats, but that's really it. But all around the Houston Outlaws, they're proving us wrong. A strong weekend. Strong weekend going against the Dallas Fuel, which Dallas Fuel looks good without a hitscan player, and we'll talk about Dallas Fuel when we get there. But Houston Outlaws with a strong first impression for everyone for the first weekend, especially the Shock. They almost got reverse swept. It would have probably boomed the Houston Outlaws if that happened, but they kept wanting to go for it on the Havana map. Jonggu comes off with a huge shatter and just makes Houston Outlaws get the W at the end of the day for that map. And just Houston Outlaws, fantastic first weekend. They're proving everyone wrong. I like to see that. Let's talk about the Los Angeles Gladiators now. Let's talk about that. Los Angeles Gladiators so far very underwhelming. You know, I've seen some people say, but they went against the Shock and Dallas Fuel. I don't think that's a reasonable argument. They should be competing against this team. LA Gladiators should be making these games close, especially against the Shock. LA Gladiators looked awful against the Shock. They should have made that game super competitive, and they looked like a mid-table, low-tier team. Then they go against the Dallas Fuel, and I say they look the same. And I predicted Dallas to win that game after I saw Glads play against the Shock. Glads is not looking competitive so far. But once again, it's the first weekend, first couple of days. Nothing much really overreact on so far. I'm just going over what we first thoughts are on this weekend. LA Gladiators so far pretty underwhelming. Let's look at the tank line. Muse, he had some moments. Muse had a decent amount of moments in this first weekend. Then you have Space, also some moments, probably his worst performance so far in the Overwatch we've seen in a while. Then you look at the DPS line. Birdring, Kevster, Mirror, I'd say they're still solid. Kevster still fantastic this entire weekend. Mirror, he's had moments here and there. Birdring, I'd still say he's pretty good all around this weekend. Then you have Moth, Skewed, and Shu. Shu was kind of solid all weekend, except for that Temple of Anubis map against the Dallas Fuel. He swapped to Moira. Don't understand that switch just yet. I mean, having a BAP is very important, especially if you're going against a Doomfist that can almost one-tap everyone on that team. Having a lamp to stop that, make the fights go a little bit longer, probably going your way, is what you need at that BAP T. Switching to Moira is just very interesting against the comp Dallas Fuel was running, so wasn't a fan of that swap. Moth was still doing a fantastic job. People were saying Moth is kind of bad now, which I don't understand that one. Moth was doing a lot in those two matches he played. Obviously, he was kind of subbed out for Skewed here and there to play Brig, which I don't know if I'm comfortable just yet. Having Moth in's a pretty big deal. He's a shot caller. He can learn Brig pretty fast. We already seen him play Brig in the past, and he's good at it. I get why Skewed's there. He's kind of like the Brig specialist, which is kind of funny to hear, but Skewed's there. All around, so far, the LA Gladiators, very underwhelming, I will say. Just very underwhelming of a team so far. I will say, I said it last time in every Gladiators video, they still have DPay. I'd say so far, this is a coaching this thing right now. It's way too early to tell right now, but so far, I am looking at the coaching. This has happened every season now. A fantastic roster, just having the same results. Always having the same results, 5th to 6th, maybe 7th, 8th. it's the same results with the same coaching, especially the head coach of DPay. I love the guy. I think he's a great coach. But with this roster should be doing many other things right now. Definitely a lot of other things right now. Now to the big one, the Dallas Fuel. This is also, I think, a solid opening for the team. You know, losing XC, coming in with Doha and Sparkle as their DPS duo, and the same as everyone else, which is Fearless Hanbin, Repel, Fielder, and Jexa. A bit of a rotation there like the Houston Outlaws back in the day with Raucus, Repel. Dallas is kind of doing the same thing with Fielder and Repel. So very interested to see what's going on there. And may I say, a lot of surprise with the Dallas Fuel. Fearless Hanbin, still top tier. Hanbin's first game against the Houston Outlaws was kind of up and down, but second game, Hanbin really picked it up with his D.Va and his Zarya play. Then you have Jexa, Fielder, and Repel. Repel, may I say, has surprised me. I thought he was going to be not so good on the Dallas field. I knew he was going to improve a lot on the Dallas field with Rush, Young, and Aid, but may I say, I think Repel so far is maybe looking better than Fielder, which is weird to say. Fielder has been coming in for the Moira and just his specialty, the Lucio. Let's not talk about the Lucio. But Repel comes in, playing the Ana, probably the Zen at some points. Repel, very surprising to see how good he's performing right now. Jexa, he's had his up and down so far in this first weekend. First game, not so good. Second game, way better. All around for the Dallas field. The first game against the Houston Outlaws was not so good. Their second game against the LA Gladiators was really good. Now let's look at Sparkle. Sparkle, man, this guy has improved by a lot in the offseason. This man's been grinding Tracer, and you could tell it's been working out. This man is dominating on the Tracer, potentially could be competing with the top 5 Tracers in the league. This man's doing a fantastic job against all the other teams he's went against so far, the Houston Outlaws and the Gladiators, dominating on his Tracer, dominating on his Doomfist. This guy's improved a lot in the offseason. Then you have Doha, which first game, like I said, for everyone else, first game of Doha against the Houston Outlaws was pretty rough. Then you move into the second game. Doha was a little bit better. He improved a lot from that first game, and I am very interested to see how this moves on forward. You know, there is a new signing coming soon at the Dallas field. Obviously going to be a hit scan player. We'll figure out who that is later. There's a lot of theories right now who that could be. Very interested to see what that's going to be for the Dallas field. The lighting's off. I just sick. But anyways, the San Francisco Shock, also very underwhelming. But may I say, before we talk about Shock even more, is that this is the normal Shock, actually. If you really think about it, every year at the start, Shock is not so good. I mean, I remember back in the day, people started putting Shock 10, lower than that, in some people's power rankings. This is the normal for Shock, where they do not do so good at the start of the season, and then they improve later on, which I think is going to be the same case here. But may I say, there is still a lot of question marks with Shock. I will say in the DPS line, this is the most confusing DPS line Shock has done so far. I mean, Nero, he's doing good. Then you have Glister, which he's so far underwhelming, and I kind of expected that, but didn't for how bad he's performing so far. It's kind of up and down thing. Then you have Violet coming in for the McCree, which it was good the first game, but second game, not so much. Then you have Tayo coming in for the Symmetra, which was very confusing. Just a lot of weird things. I mean, Striker's doing good. A lot of weird things at the DPS line so far on the San Francisco Shock, so that's a lot of question marks. Tank line, super. Choi Hyobin, some Smurf here and there. I mean, it's solid. There's some inconsistencies here and there, super and Choi and Smurf. It's just weird to see what's going on right now. Then you have the support line, FD God and Violet, and occasionally some Twilight comes in here and there. FD God, he's playing like he normally does, like he did on the Paris Eternal, very aggressive, tries to get some kills, sometimes feeds here and there, which was expected, but I think will be coached later on. Then you have a Violet, which was a rough weekend for him. First game, not so rough because they were going against Gladiators, you know. Second game against the Houston Outlaws. This is probably one of Violet's worst games. He was getting caught out way too many times. First death, which shouldn't happen. If you're a bat player, you should not be dying first, ever. And that's taking a big L for your team in the next team fight. So seeing Violet die the first time is very rough. Then you have FD God. He's sometimes feeding here or there. Shock, may I say, so far, like I'm going to say with Shanghai Dragons, this team is very beatable this season so far. But like I said, let's not overreact. Shock normally does this at the start of the season. They're not so good at the start, and they get better later on. That's what we've seen so far, Shock, every year. Speaking of Shock, like I said earlier, Shanghai Dragons, very beatable this year. Against the Charge, they 3-0'd, but may I say, that was a tough 3-0 for the Dragons. This was a very tough one. They looked very beatable. Charge put up a fight, and I still gotta say, Charge does not look that competitive so far this year. Like I said, early, first weekend. But Charge not really that competitive so far with their roster. Dragons, not as good as they were last year. And people are already talking about Fearless was the carry of this team. Don't know about that one just yet. Then they went against the Chengdu Hunters. They got 3-0'd by the Chengdu Hunters, and Chengdu Hunters look really good in that game. Shanghai Dragons look good occasionally. There were some up and downs here and there. So Shanghai Dragons, very interested to see what goes on with this team later on. It's basically the same team, but Fate's in there. DM's coming in a little bit more. So I'm very interested to see what goes on with the Shanghai Dragons a little bit more later on. Now let's talk about the Los Angeles Valiant. The Los Angeles Valiant. May I say, this team is looking as I thought they were going to look. I will say there is some surprises. Mo Lanrin, very good on Tracer, but nothing else. Nothing else, though. The reason I say that is just, I don't know. Do I have to say my reasoning? I think y'all saw the game. I mean, his Genji really reminded me of AKM back in the day. I mean, that was crazy. And then anything else Mo Lanrin played was rough. Even the Sombra, like this guy's Sombra was not so good. His Tracer was phenomenal, though, compared to everything else. Crystal's still a fantastic player. He's good on the Widow, he's good on the Ashe, he's good on the Tracer. Crystal's still good, as we expected. Silver 3. Shocheng, I mean, he's looking solid. As I predicted that he was going to look, he's looking solid so far on the Zarya. And I think he's going to do good in the future with LA Valiant. Yes, he has some moments here and there where he's not looking so good, but Shocheng's looking solid. Then you have Hybe. I mean, I'm not going to bash on Hybe. He was a tank player and he got moved to main sport because LA Valiant was going to sign a main sport and Hybe had to move, and you can just tell this man's learning main sport as it goes on. It's rough. I'm not going to bash on him. It's more of a team decision than his decision. He probably had something like, yeah, I'll play main sport, but don't expect the best. We has had here and there good moments, I will say. But all around, I'm not impressed with his performance so far. This was expected, though, from the LA Valiant. What we expected so far at the LA Valiant, very expected. Crystal's doing good. Shocheng's doing good. Mo Lanrin's good on the Tracer. Silver 3's is just maybe give it time. Maybe give it time. Be positive about it. Be positive about it. Then on to the next team, Toronto Defiance. This team's weird. I expected this team to do a tiny bit better than they showed so far. I mean, let's look over the roster so far. I mean, Hisu's been doing a fantastic job this weekend. Then you have Nice, which Nice is up and down. He's kind of like that. Nice on the Echo has been very interesting. I think Nice on the Echo specifically is really good, but when he duplicates like the Diva, very questionable to duplicate a Diva instead of like a Reinhardt or a Winston. Very interested to see that one. I kind of maybe understand the play. I know duplicate his Diva, DM your team, get the bomb, throw a bomb in maybe for a combo or something. I get that. But when it comes to Reinhardt, you can just easily get that shatter in like 3 seconds, shatter, get another one right after that, shatter again. It's just very easy to get shatters compared to bombs. It's just, Nice is really good on Echo, but his duplicates have not been so good so far. Sato on the Rein, he did get out-Rhined by Gator, which was expected. Gator's really good on the Reinhardt, but Sato on the Winston, man, that was a game changer for the Toronto Defiant. Michelle, he's looking solid so far. His first game, he looked really good on the Zarya. His second game against the Atlanta Reign, it was up and down a little bit more. It wasn't as dominant as against their Vancouver Titans game, but that's expected going against the Vancouver Titans. Then you have the support line, which is Lastro. This man had a rough weekend, but he still performed here and there. Unsunjay still looks kind of solid, not really impressive for him just yet. But I think this team is going to build throughout the entire season. It's KDG. That's how KDG is coached so far every time we've seen him every year at the Overwatch League. So maybe a month or two later, Toronto Defiance can be way better than we're seeing them now. And that goes with other teams in the league so far. Then on to the last team we want to talk about, the Guangzhou Charge. I kind of mentioned it in the Shanghai Dragons part. Charge, as I predicted, looking very weak. Kariv, he's had moments here. Mondu, I have really not been impressed with Mondu so far. I was really expecting a way more from Mondu, not getting it on his Brig. He's not really doing a lot of Brig things. Then you have Krong and Rio. Okay, those are the bright parts so far I've seen on the Charge. I mean, Rio's still doing his things. So far, not as good as last year with Krong. Rio's still doing his things. And you have Mike Haley coming in. No Eileen this weekend. Very surprising to see after we've seen Eileen and Choi So-won play in multiple tournaments. So seeing Mike Haley come in, Mike Haley's good, but I think Eileen could be a little bit better. Then you have Choi So-won. Choi So-won's dominating so far this entire weekend. I've been really impressed with Choi So-won, and I think he's a good part of this team. So far, that is the weekend. I know there's way more teams we'll be talking about, but those are the teams that really I wanted to talk about. Those are the teams I wanted to talk about, see what they're going to do. Houston Outlaws proving all of us wrong. Houston Outlaws could be arguably the best team right now, which I wouldn't mind. They're definitely maybe a top 5 team right now. Very strong. Obviously, we knew this from Chunkbuck and Harsha. Very strong coaching staff. I'm very impressed with Houston Outlaws so far, and also the Dallas Fuel. playing insanely well without a hit scan player, and I'd love to see what they can do next week. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for me. If you guys want to stay more in tune to Overwatch League news and Overwatch League stuff in general, don't forget to subscribe down below. Also, don't forget to join my Discord down below as well. And don't forget to follow my Twitter and my Twitch. And don't forget to hit that bell. And don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. And I'll see you guys on the next one.